These are the type of watches that I like to get on the channel. They got all their imperfections that they carried down from the 70s. And back in the 70s, Nevada Grenshin made this watch, appropriately named the F77. Now 46 years later, they've made an almost true to form reissue. It's got modern materials while sticking to the original design. Now it's far from perfect, as they've carried across some of the design flaws from that era and that particular watch. And I'll share those flaws with you today. Let's check this thing out. Now this is a very interesting watch, and I say interesting because it's not actually an homage to anything. Well, not today. It was back in the 70s when it was first made. Very Genta inspired, as were many of the watches of that era, and they were all following the lines of watches like the Royal Oak. And this watch, which was designed back then, has pretty much stayed true to form. Now firstly, I want to share with you guys the delivery time of this watch. After I was contacted by Nevada Grenshin for the review, it took exactly 2 months to the day for the watch to arrive on my doorstep. I'd actually forgotten about it. Now the watch was sent to the channel without the need for it to be returned, so I'll leave all the links in the description section for you to check them out. That said, Nevada Grenshin has no input into the review, the thoughts, the ideas, or the footage of this video. And before I share my week on the wrist with this piece, let's have a look at its specs. I measure a case diameter of 37mm with a case height of 11.6mm. Now that crown is a 5.6mm signed screw down crown. The watch offers 100 meters of water resistance, and the total weight size to my 18cm wrist comes in at exactly 121 grams. Now on the wrist, the watch has been a delight. Firstly, because of its footprint, and secondly, being an integrated unit, it's worn a little bit larger than those specs would suggest. Bear in mind that effective lug-to-lug distance of 45 is actually extended all the way to 50.6. So before you commit to buying something like this, check the size of your wrist, as you might find some overhang. The height of this watch has been a pleasure, and that bracelet has tapered from 21.8mm down to 15.9 at the clasp. So comfort-wise, it's been a real joy. And speaking of that bracelet, if you look at those end links, they look like they're an afterthought in their design. And not today, not now, but back then in the 70s when the watch was originally manufactured. They've basically copied the exact same design, which makes this pretty cool. It's imperfect, it does look like an afterthought, but it's cool nonetheless. I think staying true to form when you reissue a watch is more important than adding a new design element, even if that original form was questionable to begin with. So well done. And in doing so, I think they've brought some of that 70s charm with this watch. But because of modern materials and different tolerances, they've also introduced a few small niggles as well, pretty much unavoidable ones. And one of them is this. The point at which the bracelet attaches to the watch end link touches the watch case when the bracelet hangs down. And looking at the original watch, which would have had a much lighter gauge bracelet and much thinner and more rattly experience on the wrist, the fact that now they've used modern materials with better tolerances and gauges, it's touching the case. They probably could have avoided it by making a longer center link, but that again, that would have affected the overall lug to lug, which even now stands at 50.6. Now, is it a deal breaker? Well, for some people with smaller wrists, maybe. But for everyone else, no, because the amount of time you're going to be doing this with your watch is negligible. Usually you wear a watch like this. All that said, the wearing experience on the wrist has been nothing but comfortable and balanced on my wrist. The quality finish on the bracelet seems to be on a very good level. There's a good taper, it features screw pins, a fully milled swivel and clasp, and 6 micro adjustments. Albeit an on-the-fly adjustable clasp would also have been a welcome addition here at this price point, because the watch comes in at $1,260 US. But I suppose if they'd put an on-the-fly adjustable clasp here, it would have strayed from the original design. Now the hero of this watch has been that dial. It's got a carbon effect basket weave pattern. It looks very, very close to the original. And wearing this watch indoors, it does suffer from legibility issues. So you find yourself having to look twice to get a gauge on the time. But outside, especially in the sun, this dial comes alive. It's absolutely superb. Especially that blue tonality and the way the double dome sapphire plays with that light. You've got an applied logo, applied indices. It's so 70s. Also, if you haven't already noticed, there's a highly polished rehaut that also aids in light play and making that dial pop. So design-wise, looking at the original, they seem to have stayed as true to form as close as possible. Now turning the watch over, you can see there's a solid case back with their emblem, and behind that case back, the watch features a Soprod P024 automatic. Pretty much similar specs to an ETA 2824 with around 38 hours power reserve. And this particular watch here has been running with a very healthy amplitude and gaining around 7 seconds a day. Now lastly, I want to talk about the lume. The lume on this watch is garbage. It was bad on the original model and it's still bad here. So for a sports watch, they really could have done more with this reissue. However, I don't see how they could have added larger lume plots and more lume without ruining the design layout and not staying true to form. So, do I like the watch? Well, unreservedly, yes. And to be honest, I think it's because of its flaws. It's faithfully carried them across from the 70s original design, and in doing so, it also seems to have captured some of that late 1970s vibe as well. My experience with this has been like wearing a new old stock F77, but better. Because the tolerances, the fit, the finish, they are so much better than its predecessor. An interesting watch indeed. I'm glad I got a chance to get hands-on with it on the channel. I hope you enjoyed my take and perspective on this watch. It's imperfect, absolutely, but strangely lovable and extremely easy to bond with from the get-go. And when a watch can actually bond with you quite easily because all the elements seem to be carried across really nicely from an original piece that they designed back in the day, I think it just makes that piece a little bit more special. Leave me your thoughts, guys, in the comment section regarding this watch or Nevada Grenchen. And for those who don't know the backstory, Nevada Grenchen is a watch company that was originally established back in 1926 and now they are restarted again in 2018. And it seems that they are slowly reintroducing their watches from the past with modern materials and trying to stay as true to form as they can in many of their models. And this is such a case here. Again, thanks for watching. Feel free to leave me your comment and inputs. Enjoy the watch that's currently on your wrist. Enjoy the rest of the day or evening wherever you are in the world. And we'll see you in the next one.